recording. Actually, it's funny last night because I was thinking about you and thinking about this little chat, and a thought that came to me was, when you've got tampons in your pockets and you go out to grab your wallet or something and you pull one out, and how embarrassed we are about it. But yet
That's
half
what
the
I
world
would
has their
say.
period. So why do we get embarrassed about tampons?
I know, we literally like put it up our sleeve like we're doing some kind of drug deal.
I know. And you feel really
It's like,
naughty.
I remember the first time that I found a tampon in my sister's swimming bag. I've got two older sisters, and my mum was like, I asked my mum what it was, and she was like, ask your older sister. So my teenage sister was like, had to tell me because my mum was just like, found it really funny.
And was she honest? Was your older sister honest what it
No,
was, or
no,
did
she
she make
wasn't
it up?
actually. I can't remember what she said, but it was like, it wasn't the whole truth.
Okay. Because I tell my 6-year-old that it's a mouse with a tail.
I think with my nieces and nephews, I'm like, just come to me when they need this, their education.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm open, but I think I'll still send Nia to you when she's ready. It's like, oh yeah, you can learn from an
Learn about it.
expert, I think. So, what is it exactly that you do for women who want to know?
Yeah, so as a women's hormone empowerment coach, I help women have happier, healthier periods. But what I'm most passionate about is, guiding women to reconnect with their unique rhythms and step into their power so they have more confidence and so they can truly glow.
How on earth did you become a woman's hormone period coach? Like, it's not just a normal career path, is it?
No, definitely not. I think that, like many others, it's definitely through my own journey. So when I was 19 years old, I was diagnosed with a hormone imbalance that affects 1 in 5 women. So very, very common. But at the time, and still now actually, so little was known about it. So it was kind of the stage where it was like, the blogs out there, but very uncredible. So I was like looking for that, and I kind of thought I had it all because I was getting irregular periods. So I thought just by doing a bit of work that I was doing, I was like, okay, I managed to get them to 2 months. But it wasn't until I went traveling for a year and I didn't get a period for a whole 9 months that I was just like, truly realized that I was like, something's got to give. I've got to like heal myself. So I decided to retrain as a holistic health and wellness coach. And just from there, I've just been learning more, educating myself, working with lots of other healers. And from that point on, I was able to put my hormone imbalance into remission. And now, like, I've realized I've been able to tap into, like, not just see periods as a gift, but a burden, but also a gift. And there's so much superpower that we can tap into.
First question, how did they test you for a hormone imbalance? Because I know, hormone imbalance is huge in women. How do they test you for that?
Well, that problem lies in itself, really. So the hormone imbalance I had was polycystic ovarian syndrome, which the name itself is mistitled. So it kind of tells us that, it kind of indicates that, this is, we have cysts, but they're not. They're actually partially developed follicles. And the other problem is that they're actually a symptom, so they're not the root cause. So a lot of people think, removing this will actually cure you or, help manage you. It's not. We need to get down to the root cause. And like so many hormone imbalances, so obviously I did have blood tests, but a lot of doctors take it at the wrong time. So really, you don't really get a good picture of what it is. And what I always say to my clients, it's, let's focus less on the labeling of what we actually have, but, look at what the symptoms are, and then also look at what the root causes are, so then we can heal it. Because there's so many symptoms you can get from it. It could be anything from excessive hair, alopecia, acne. It could be anxiety, depression. It really does have an effect on our moods. So it really is by individual for one person, so it's not going to be the same to the next. And I think that's important, like, rather than covering up by having all these all these medications and that and supplements. Let's take a step back and see, okay, what is actually triggering it. So, and yeah, there are loads of hormone tests you can do, but again, if you have things such as polycystic ovarian syndrome, sometimes the levels they can't measure anyway, because they're going to be different anyway.
Fascinating. When I was a teenager, when I look back now, I had like the worst periods, to the point I would pass out, just in pain, and they were so heavy. So, you go to the doctor, and what do? They stick you on the pill.
Yes.
With no education really, apart from take the pill, it'll clear up your skin, it'll make your periods better, and you won't get pregnant. But none of the side effects. When I look back now, and I was on the pill for 14, 18 years or something.
Yeah, I think you've really hit the nail on the head though, and it's so important, because still we're not getting that education as women that actually the pill is actually a band-aid, and it's just going to be masking everything, because that period that we think we're getting from the hormonal birth control, it's not actually a real period. It's just it's just a shedding of our lining, really, which is so misconceived. And the hormones that the doctors tell you you're getting, they're synthetic, so they're not exactly what our body produces. And actually going on a pill could actually deepen the root causes of your problems, because it makes it so much harder for you to absorb your nutrients. It really has an impact on the gut, and yeah, all it's doing is stopping you from getting your period and acting as a steroid. So later on, if you are going to want to become pregnant, what we're finding is actually it's triggering a whole lot of other issues. And again, some people have been diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome, but actually it's because it can take up to a year for our bodies to get rid of all these toxins, which essentially they are, from our body. And yeah, again, it's true what you're saying about period pains. Yeah, it's common, but it's not normal. So, and rather thinking I want to just shut my body down and don't want to listen to it, instead, like, why don't we use it as a tool to, yes, listen, because it's our body's sending us signals of what's actually happening. So we shouldn't be harsh to our body and giving it really negative self-talk. We should be saying, well, actually, I'm so grateful that you're telling me something's not quite right in our bodies.
Yeah, well, that was a long time ago, like over 20 years ago, where you just didn't question a doctor, though, did you? It was like, okay, this is what is happening. I need help with this. What do you recommend? I knew shit about my body and what it was trying to tell me. Looking back, my diet would have been shocking. I was fueled by sugar. I exercised way too much. There was grief and anxiety that was undealt with. Like right now, if you were to go to a doctor and I'd say all these same things, you wouldn't be prescribed a pill. Well, hopefully you wouldn't be, knowing that all this other stuff was going on.
Yeah, well, I still see it a lot happening with my clients, actually, or people who come to me, that they are still being prescribed the pill. And
From a male
again,
doctor?
doctors and females, they try and push you. And even my own experience, which was a few years back, when I was telling them I'm healing it naturally, they were like, no, you need to go on the pill. And they still do that. They still push you, because it's not their fault. It's just they're not giving that education. The way that our medical systems have been built is to treat symptoms rather than get down to the root cause. And if you think about how much study they've done on holistic healing, it's actually only a couple of hours, really. So it's nowhere near. But yeah, it's definitely, again, like, one of the key things that I always see, like a key theme, is stress and the impact it does have on our hormones and our mind and bodies. Like, we think our mind and bodies are like that. It's like that. So of course it's going to have an impact. And if you get a late period or anything, it's always a great way to see, okay, oh, I was late. Well, what happened in my last cycle? Why was that? And it could definitely be, something stressful and emotional happened to you, which has a knock-on effect.
Yeah, absolutely. When you're about to release some big emotions, it definitely, now when you're in tune with your body, you can see it affecting your period, um, and just your overall health too, doesn't it? When you're in tune with your period and your body, you feel so much better, and you do feel powerful, especially as a woman.
Yeah. And it's almost as if we're, if we're finding that we're missing periods or having something, it could be because we're telling ourselves, because we're so highly stressed, we could be telling our bodies it's not safe to have a period. So that could be a reason why we're actually seeing, we're facing irregular cycles or a lack of periods.
Did you have much education as a child with your period through your parents, or you had older sisters? Did they educate you, or when you got your period, it was just like, here you go, here's a pad, deal with it,
No,
go to bed?
I was actually late. So I remember when I first got my period, I was like, hurrah! I was like, went down. And yeah, I think I haven't really ever seen it as a negative thing as such, but I know a lot of my friends growing up did. I think I was just happy because I was so late blooming. Like I had, yeah, my boobs came really late as well, so I'd always be comparing myself in the changing rooms to other girls, how your body looks. But my mum, she's quite open, so I remember as well. Again, how I told you about the tampons. She was quite funny when one time I needed to get some sanitary towels, and she goes, "Ask your dad for the money." So I had to ask him. So
Yeah, and yeah, I guess it just depends how it's been passed down in your family, isn't it? I'm real open with our daughter because I knew, well, I know from my experience how awkward it was when I was a teenager, and how much you just had to hide it, which it makes me
yeah,
laugh now. Because if I was to pull out
yeah.
a tampon now, I'd be in fits and giggles and probably just hand it to the person. Will you accept this as payment, please?
Yeah, I think I think yeah. Sometimes I have felt in the past that I have done that in the past, even at work. Like I remember one of the companies I worked for, they passed a box of tampons around to a woman's desk, and it was as if if someone was leaving, they're like, "You get the stash of tampons." So there was like this kind of woman code and things like that. But you'd still be sneaking it up your sleeve.
Yeah.
And I remember actually at school, I remember this last night, I think, actually falling asleep, funny enough, because I knew we were talking. I remember I was having I was on my period at school, and I was too embarrassed to ask to go to the toilets. So I just bled through, and I remember I borrowed my sister's coat and I stained it. And I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And it's all because I was too embarrassed, because as teachers, they'd be like, no, you should have gone in your break. But what happens if you're heavy? Like,
Mm.
they need to have these kind of policies in place, or be considerate to women, what they're going through, and kind of not question it really, because I was so embarrassed to ask.
Yeah, and everyone's got one of those stories, don't we? Of an embarrassing moment which shouldn't have been embarrassing had we been able to get up and go when we needed to, or just owned it. It's like, oh well, it is what it is.
Yeah,
Shit happens
yeah.
some days, doesn't it?
Well, now you're seeing like definitely a rise in people actually owning it. Like I know some of my girlfriends, which some people might think is a bit too much, there's actually necklaces and you can collect your period in it, and some people I know wear it as a necklace. Or they save it up and you can put it on your plants because it's a great fertilizer. So there's all different things you can do to get creative.
Well, I haven't actually read the book, but I've seen of the book, of how in Māori culture, and I hope I get this right, here in New Zealand, that when it was time for them to bleed, they actually went off and just bled onto the land. That was part of their connection, and it was just accepted. Um, Gosh, you couldn't imagine doing that now, could you?
No, but it is beautiful because I think we as women are so cyclical, very much like mother nature, so it only makes sense for us to reconnect with the earth, because there's so much grounding we can do. And
Mm.
I always compare our periods like the seasons, because we go through these 4 different phases. So again, it makes sense for us to reconnect with outside, because we're cyclical, like, you know, the moon phases is, you know, our periods are typically, you know, give or take 28 days, which is exactly what the moon phases are. And just like the moon, you know, you start a new cycle and things like that. So I think it's really beautiful that we kind of, I guess in a way, surrender, because just as that as well, you know, we kind of need to be looking at our whole menstrual cycle rather than just being on our period or off a period, because there's things we can do in, you know, to put things in place to help us support us throughout our whole seasons. Like, for example, in our autumn, so the week before we're on our period, this is where we see our inner critique at its peak. So this may be the time that we need to like say these positive affirmations, because it's really impacting how we feel, because, you know, we're seeing these shifts of hormones just changing through our bodies dramatically. So yes, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I talk a lot in our workshops about lining up your period with the moon cycle, because if you can put the two of them together, and I love your, you know, your workshop that you did about the inner winter and the winter, and yeah, that was just beautiful. If you put those with the moon cycles, how much they actually line up, and how much
Yes.
power you can gain from that, you know, your personal power, and also your connection to yourself, and when you want it, when it's time to give yourself the time.
Yeah, because actually that's the thing as well. When we're on our period, we can either consciously surrender or we could just keep hustling against the grain. But like the moon, you know, when you're going into the new moon, it's great to set intentions. And then when you're at the full moon, it's just like letting go of everything.
Mm.
So like it's the same with our periods and our different phases, you know, of how we can use it as a powerful thing. Because when we're on our period, we're going to be more in our feminine energy. We're going to be more intuitive. So, and again, we're going to be thinking, okay, this is a reset for me.
I love that. I love it. People could learn so much from you. And it just, and it's about connecting, isn't it? It's about connecting with yourself, and taking the power back as being a female, you know, because we have these periods, you can't really get rid of them. Well, maybe you can in some ways if you really, really want to, but how, yeah, owning it and using it to your advantage instead of seeing it as something like a bad thing that happens to you once a month
Yeah.
and that you need to
And
hide.
I think especially as women, as we're stepping more, you know, because we've got the equality rights, so now that we're seeing a lot more opportunities for us. And I do see that a lot of women feel that we're being hindered by our periods because they think that we have to be always on the go. But what we need to remember is that we're just as powerful men and we can achieve so much, but it's just we need to work in a different way than being in that masculine energy. And actually men as well, we're seeing a lot of men now also awakening to this, to the more feminine energy as well, and they're using the feminine energy to their advantage as well.
So cool. I could talk to you all day, and I'm sure we could have so many giggles about period stories and tampons and pads. They're still funny words, though, don't you find? Is it just me being a little schoolgirl? Tampons and pads.
Yeah, I wonder, I don't even know where they came from actually.
No idea. All the okay. Favorite word that you used to call your period at school?
Oh, I think I just say time of the month. I know some people say like, was it the crimson wave and things like that.
I haven't heard
I
that.
think I'm just up front. I'm just like, yeah, I'm on my period. And also I'm so open. Like if I'm seeing like a guy, I know like sometimes I've said to them specifically, I'm like, no, I'm, you know, I'm on my period, it's time of the month and things like that. Whereas my girlfriends go, I can't believe you said that to him. I'd be like, oh no, 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 it's you know, private time or moon time, things like that. And I was just like, no.
Own it, eh? Own it. Own it. I remember in intermediate school, we used to call it the box. Don't ask me why. I've got no idea, but that just came back to mind. The
That's
box.
actually, yeah. Although to me, that I just feel like it's very masculine, really. Like I feel like it, yeah. I'd like to call it a circle more than anything, maybe. Cycle,
Full of life.
circle.
All right, Sophia, where can they find you and learn, you know, more about your programs and what you do so they can empower themselves and connect more to themselves through their periods?
Yeah, so my website's www.sotremendous.com, and my Instagram is so tremendous as well. But I've also got a private Facebook group which is free. It's for like-minded women who want to learn more about educating and empowering themselves on all things hormones and periods and women empowerment. That's called Living in Sync. So if you just search and find it on Facebook search bar in the group, you'll be able to find that. But yeah, all my programs you can find on my website as well.
Awesome. I'll share the links attached to this anyway so they can find you. And thank you. This has been fun. It's always nice to talk about, you know, things that people don't like to talk about always.
The taboos.
Yeah, the things that you and I love to talk about, but not everyone else. All right. Oh, I just want to stop recording and I can't do that. There we go.